So carbon capture and storage is a way that you can significantly reduce carbon emissions from both industry and power. So what you do is you physically take the carbon dioxide out of the flue gas, and then you put it in a pipe and you transport that CO2 via a pipe offshore, and then you put it under the ground, under the rocks, under the North Sea, and store it permanently under the North Sea. And what you can do with carbon capture and storage is put the infrastructure into a network, in a cluster, and so you can pick up lots of CO2 from lots of different plants and transport it all in a shared pipeline offshore for permanent storage. So it's a significant way that you can decarbonise an industrial cluster in the UK or anywhere else in the world. So in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, clearly the first one has got to be climate action. This is one way that you can significantly decarbonise an industrial cluster. And we know that about 20% of the UK's carbon emissions comes from industry. So we need to tackle the industrial CO2. And this is one way that you can really do that. In fact, for some plants, it's the only way you can do it. So it really is about climate action, but it also has a lot of other benefits. So it's about clean power, it's about sustainable growth, it's about innovative infrastructure, it's about sustainable cities, it's about a whole range of the Sustainable Development Goals really that are encompassed in this one project, this one piece of infrastructure that we've put in. In terms of innovation, we don't actually need any innovation. We can do it right now with the products that we have on the table at the moment. You can go to a supplier and you can buy carbon capture and storage equipment. It's operating at the moment at 22 plants across the globe. So this is not an innovation challenge. Clearly innovation will happen and innovation will reduce the cost, but that's not necessarily needed at this point in time. So what's needed is deployment at scale in industrial centres within the UK. That's what's needed, and that's what the innovation challenge is. And the challenges are more around the commercial challenges around how you do that rather than the engineering solutions, because the solutions have already been engineered. In terms of the engineering support for Sustainable Development Goals, engineers are absolutely vital for achieving Sustainable Development Goals. But I think actually engineers have already engineered many of the solutions to achieve these Sustainable Development Goals. In terms of carbon capture and storage, we already have the solutions on the table. It's about deploying those solutions that engineers have come up with. But clearly we just can't meet these sustainable goals without engineers. I think the ICE can really raise the profile of carbon capture and storage as a solution. Not very many people know about carbon capture and storage, and it's really surprising how many people don't know about carbon capture and storage. And yet it is one of the solutions which is going to be incredibly valuable for our industrial clusters. And as I said, the emissions from our industry is 20% of our carbon emissions. So we need to tackle our industrial emissions, and carbon capture and storage is one of those technologies that can do that. We've all heard about nuclear power, we've all heard about solar farms and offshore wind, but not many people have heard about carbon capture and storage, yet it could be just as viable or just as important in industrial decarbonisation going forward.